the lingering fear the war in Ukraine could evolve into a nuclear conflict. Ahead of the gathering in Ramstein, there was speculation the U.S. would give the go-ahead to send long-range missiles to Ukraine. Now, this week, Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, issued a warning to the West. They should understand they are joking about our red lines here. They shouldn't joke about our red lines. Coming from a nuclear power that sounds like Russia would be prepared to use a nuclear weapon. Well, right from the beginning of Russia's war, its President Putin has warned the West not to defy his ambitions in Ukraine. But Washington and its allies increased military aid to Ukraine. Also this week, the Kremlin said that it's revising its nuclear doctrine. Now, it's believed that could mean a lowering of the threshold for the use of nuclear weapons. And a new Russian weapon has grabbed the attention of the West. It's not a nuclear warhead, but a new cruise missile that's powered by a small nuclear reactor. It's called the Burevestnik in Russia, but the United States has given it the name Skyfall. U.S. researchers believe they have now found the first launch site for the experimental missile. It's believed to be located at a nuclear warhead storage facility nearly 500 kilometers north of Moscow. President Putin says its nuclear propulsion system gives the missile an almost unlimited range and means that it can evade missile defenses. Western analysts say the technology could pose more of a threat to Russia than its adversaries. Well, I'm joined now by one of the researchers who discovered this alleged launch site. He's an associate research analyst at CNA, the Center for Naval Analyses. That's a nonprofit research and analysis organization based in Washington, D.C. I'm happy to welcome to the program tonight Decker Eveleth. Decker, good to see you. What makes you so sure that site could be used to launch the Skyfall?
So the facility that we're looking at has a number of what we call signatures in imagery analysis, things that are unique to that site that we use to determine specific features of what that could be used for. This particular facility is unlike any other nuclear weapons deployment site in Russia. Not only does it have facilities for the maintenance of missiles, but it has nuclear warhead facilities, and then it has a couple of very peculiar launch positions. There are 9 launch positions on the bottom left side of the image. Yeah. And what we notice about those launch positions is that unlike other Russian launch positions, they're situated in a very particular direction, and they're also bermed, which means you have a large earthen rampart around the launch position. And that says to us that this would be used for a fixed missile system. And because of the directionality of the launch sites, you're looking at likely a cruise missile.
Wow. The Skyfall, I mean, it sounds scary when you read about it on paper, but is it really a game changer on the battlefield?
Not really. The Skyfall system doesn't really give Russia any capability they don't already have. They have cheaper nuclear systems for targeting Europe, and they have ICBMs for targeting the United States. Mm-hmm. The most generous argument I could make about why they're investing in this system is to defeat U.S. national missile defense systems in order to confidently strike a series of targets in the United States. But even that is not a credible justification for the system. And we in the field of Russian nuclear studies have been having a lot of arguments about particularly why they've decided to invest here.
Well, a flying nuclear reactor, I mean, it doesn't sound very safe to me. One analyst called it a uniquely stupid weapon, or even a flying Chernobyl. I mean, what's your take on that?
So, it's an unshielded nuclear reactor, which means that you're generating some amount of radiation as it flies along. The other problem is that, of course, if it were to crash in an accident, like we saw happen in 2019, I think, you are leaving a very dangerous object that could scatter highly radioactive material around the launch impact point or at the bottom of the ocean. But we don't necessarily know exactly how much radiation it could generate while it's flying along. I think the more concerning part is you have a situation in which, if there is to be an accident, or if this missile were to be launched and then go, off course during a test, or maybe even a situation in which Russia thinks it can signal with the system, you've got a flying nuclear reactor that's going to land God knows where.
Could the United States, could it take up the challenge of making this kind of weapon safe? I mean, are we seeing the start, of a new arms race with the West?
I think that this suite of systems is meant to be very scary, but be perhaps a not low investment, but a alternative to a cumulative arms race. That's a very generous assessment of the problem.
What about Russia's nuclear doctrine? The Kremlin says that it's thinking about altering it. If you could explain what the doctrine is at the moment and what a change could mean.
I mean, the Russian nuclear doctrine at the most basic level is they reserve the right to utilize nuclear weapons when the fundamental interests of the state are at risk. That has been usually interpreted to mean some sort of existential threat to the Russian state, like, for example, in a high-intensity war with NATO. I think they are reevaluating that, and you can look at a lot of the Russian strategic thinkers have been entertaining more alarming and more broad use cases for their nuclear arsenal. And that includes a bigger emphasis on possibly first strikes.
Decker, this is a fascinating topic. We appreciate you taking the time on Friday to talk with us. Decker Eveleth, thank you.